over at Florida State University because I'm on the book tour for what I think is a wonderful book. It's mine. It's called No They Can't, Why Government Fails But Individuals Succeed. And individuals succeed often in some unexpected ways. Consider, for example, how do you save animals, conserve, protect endangered species? Well, here in Florida, other places too, but individuals are doing that in some unexpected ways. For example, quail. Quail have been vanishing in America. They've declined by 80%. But here in North Florida, there are plenty of quail because hunters like to kill them. Now, that doesn't sound right. How can that be? So, Brian Yablonsky is a Florida Fish and Wildlife Commissioner. He's here to explain. How can that be?
Well, what a lot of people don't realize is that sometimes you have to hunt an animal to save an animal, and that's particularly true in the case of this little 6-ounce bird we call the bobwhite quail. Bobwhite quail numbers here in North Florida and South Georgia are so strong because individual landowners with their own money and their own resources, driven by a passion for hunting quail, have been protecting and conserving wild quail habitat for probably more than 100 years. And they've done it to such a degree that they've saved about 300,000 acres of this wild quail habitat. Now, I know 300,000 acres probably doesn't mean a lot to folks out here, but you're from New York. Central Park, 300,000 acres is 350 Central Parks lined up side by side just north of Tallahassee here, all being saved by individual landowners.
And so on this property, how do they save the quail?
Well, they intensively manage the land for quail habitat. What we have outside of town here is a habitat called longleaf pine. And longleaf pine are these big stately pine trees, and underneath the pine trees are these open savannas of grass. In order to actually manage for these open savannas of grass, you have to use fire. And I know it's counterintuitive, but fire is nature's original and best wildlife management tool. But it's very expensive when you try to burn in a controlled way. And here we do controlled burns to burn out the thickets so the grasses can grow, so the quail can use the grasses for food and cover. Very expensive, hard for government to do because it is so expensive, but for these landowners, they're willing to put everything into it.
And you want small fires so that you don't get a big fire later that kills all the quail.
That's right. You have a lot of dense underbrush if you don't burn, and then you have these big wildfires that get out of control. That's what we're seeing in the West a lot.
And you're the Fish and Wildlife Commission. Isn't it your job? Why don't you preserve the quail?
Gosh, I wish we had the resources to do it, and I wish we had the incentive to do it as much as a private landowner. I'm one of these believers that private self-interest is a better incentive a lot of times than anything else because it matters to you. You own the land, you know what you want to do with the land, and so you pay and you put all your energy into it.
And these private landowners, they just like to hunt quail, or they charge other people money to hunt quail?
Primarily, they hunt quail on their own. I mean, there are examples of landowners that actually do charge, but for these folks, this is a tradition that has gone back more than 100 years. These hunting plantations were founded by the families that had relations with John D. Rockefeller, family members of Andrew Carnegie, Mark Hanna, the big political boss from Ohio at the turn of the last century, who called Teddy Roosevelt that damn cowboy. So these are families that it's been in their blood for generations.
Do they let other people go on their land to look at the quail?
You might get invited. You might be a guest on my place, but it's not open to the public.
Well, that seems selfish, private. That doesn't sound good.
Why? But at the end of the day, results matter. And what matters here is that wild quail habitat's being protected, and it's being protected for all the right reasons.
In Texas, ranchers conserve to make money.
That's right. That's right. So in Texas, we have a case of hunters and ranchers that are actually saving animals that are already on the endangered species list. And there are hundreds of ranches in Texas that for years had been raising cattle, and they made a business decision to switch to raising wildlife. And they wanted to raise wildlife for hunting.
Wildlife like antelope?
Exactly. Some native to America, but some native to Africa, Asia, and Europe.
Animals that are disappearing in Africa, Asia, and Europe.
3 animals in particular. There are 3 African antelope, the scimitar horned oryx, the addax, and the dama gazelle, that are either extinct or nearly extinct in Africa. But guess where they're flourishing?
Texas?
Deep in the heart of Texas. They're flourishing because hunters are willing to pay $5,000 to $10,000 a piece to come and hunt the antelope in Texas. So ranchers and landowners there have every incentive to husband those species, to grow those species, to breed those species.
So now we have a nearly extinct species being brought back. I would think the federal government would be thrilled by this.
Well, in order to hunt an animal that is on the endangered species list, you do have to get an exclusion from the federal government. And initially, the federal government granted that exclusion because it did recognize the conservation value. You know, these ranchers started with a few dozen antelope, you know, back in the 1970s. Today, they've got 17,000 antelope on their ranches. I mean, it's pretty effective. But guess what? Animal rights groups didn't agree.
They sued, as usual.
They sued. They went to court. It's been in court for a number of years, and as of last week, all the court remedies have really been exhausted, and now these hunters and ranchers are going to have to go to the federal government to get a special take permit if they want to continue these hunts. And these take permits are not necessarily the easiest things to get. They're pretty cumbersome. And
what's going to happen?
Well, you know, some of the ranchers in Texas believe that in 5 years the numbers of antelope will decline by 50%, and within 10 years there may only be a few hundred left, if any at all.
So when the politicians say, yes, we can save the animals, I say this, you would agree.
I would agree.